Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Picture this. You're born to two 15-year-olds who met in a church program called King's Kids. And by the time you're 12, your dad has been deployed to Iraq for 4 out of 8 years of your life. Today, we're diving into one person's raw, unfiltered story of growing up as a military kid, from Fort Benning housing to family explosions to living in a backyard shed. You'll understand how deployment cycles shape childhood, what happens when military families implode, and how someone can choose to break cycles of dysfunction despite everything working against them.
Let me hand this over to someone who's spent way too much time thinking about these kinds of stories.
So this story starts in 1996 at the University of Michigan Hospital. Both parents are 15 years old when this kid is born. They'd met as little kids at King's Kids, didn't talk again until 7th grade, started dating when the mom had just turned 14. By the time the baby arrives, they still weren't married.
15-year-old parents. That's already setting up a completely different childhood trajectory.
Exactly. And the family dynamics get immediately complicated. There's this whole situation with the grandparents. The grandfather they called Woody splits up with one grandmother in March 1998, then 1 month later gets together with the mom's mom, Marilyn. So from age 2 onward, this kid's calling his step-grandmother Mama.
Wait, so the grandfather starts dating the other grandmother? That's like a soap opera.
Right, and this is all happening when the kid is too young to understand the adult relationship drama. But here's where it gets really interesting. The dad enters active duty March 1st, 2001. First deployment to Korea, then they're stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia.
So now we're talking about military life. What was Fort Benning like for a 5 or 6-year-old?
Hot as hell, cicada shells covering every tree, military housing that all looked the same. They lived at 856 Arrowhead Road in McGraw Manor. Got a golden retriever named Lucky when they first moved there, but the dad's friend Barry lost him while they were on a trip. Lucky was just gone when they got back.
That's heartbreaking. And this is just the beginning of the instability.
The kid starts first grade at McBride Elementary, Ms. Brown's class. They must have moved after the school year started because he walked into a spelling test on his first day. Dinosaur was on the test. He failed it.
That's such a perfect metaphor for military kid life, always walking into situations already in progress.
And then the deployment cycles start. Dad deploys to Iraq in January 2003, Operation Iraqi Freedom. The kid is 6 going on 7. OIF 1 in 2003, OIF 3 from 2005 to 2006, OIF 5 from 2007 to 2008. From age 4 to 12, his dad was deployed roughly 4 out of 8 years.
4 out of 8 years. That's half his childhood with his father gone.
But here's what's fascinating about the father-son relationship when dad was home. There was this thing called daddy torture. He'd peck the kid's forehead with his pointer finger over and over until he couldn't take it anymore. And he'd surprise the kids with stuff, like setting up GTA San Andreas in their bedroom.
The whole daddy torture thing is so specific. It's like these intense bonding rituals when military parents are actually present.
Exactly. But then there's this darker side. One time, the dad told the kids that if you put a BB gun right on your tongue when you pull the trigger, it doesn't hurt. The kid trusted him. Dad put the gun in his mouth, the kid jumped at the last moment, and the gun fired and shot him in his front right tooth, chipping it.
That's wild. It perfectly captures how military families have this different relationship with risk and trust.
The kid had friends in the neighborhood. Aldrich, who listened to Megadeth and Metallica. Cameron, who he'd fight with later. Wesley Renee, who gave him frostbite on his dick. These were the kids he grew up with on base.
Wait, frostbite on his what? How does that even happen?
The story doesn't elaborate, but it shows how military-based friendships can be intense and sometimes dangerous. They also got enrolled in wrestling, the Black Knights Youth Wrestling Club. The mom would give both kids Stevens Adderall before matches.
Giving kids Adderall before wrestling matches. That's concerning parenting.
By 2005, they'd moved to 206 Lavoie Avenue in Indian Head Village. The grandparents, Woody and Marilyn, moved in with them in 2004. Woody was mostly bedridden by then, and the kid watched him deteriorate through his childhood.
So now you have this multi-generational military household with a dying grandfather. The complexity just keeps building.
The house had an 8-foot wooden privacy fence. They had pets, a gray cat named Ms. Kitty, a husky named Balto who died early, and Woody's bulldog Duchess. The kids each had turtles for a while. One got bitten by the dog, so they ran into the woods to find a creek to leave the injured turtle in.
That turtle story is heartbreaking, but also shows how these kids were learning to deal with loss and making impossible decisions.
There were woods behind the playground near their bus stop with a downhill path and a big dried-up ravine. They had a vine you could swing on. When the kid was around 14, an MP tried to stop him from smoking at that playground. He took off running through those woods and outran the MP.
Of course, he's smoking at 14 and outrunning military police. This is escalating quickly.
The trouble was constant. One time, he got sent to stand in the corner with his nose against the wall. He was upset, locked his knees, fell straight back and hit his head, knocked himself out. Parents called an ambulance.
That's such a perfect example of how military discipline can backfire spectacularly.
And then we get to the incident that changes everything. The kid is 13, in 8th grade. His dad is deployed in Iraq, OIF 7, October 2009 to June 2010. His mom is having an affair with Carl, his Aunt Angie's ex-husband.
Oh no. This is where the family completely implodes.
The kid told his dad about Carl during a video call. Dad had him put tape over the webcam light and leave the computer running while he went to bed. Dad was in his tent in Iraq when he heard the phone ring through the open mic, heard mom say, "I love you too" to someone.
So the dad is catching his wife's affair in real time from a tent in Iraq. That's devastating.
Dad went up the chain, Sergeant Major Moore, platoon sergeant, first sergeant, told them he had a situation at home. Within 48 hours, he was on a helicopter, then a plane, then home. He'd warned mom not to show up at the house with Carl. They showed up anyway.
This is about to get really ugly, isn't it?
Dad was upstairs when they pulled up. He climbed out the bedroom window onto the front porch overhang and waited. When Carl got out of the car, Dad jumped off the roof and started swinging, beat him from one side of the car to the other.
He jumped off the roof? This sounds like an action movie.
Carl got out the other side with a baseball bat. Dad grabbed it, threw it into the cul-de-sac, kept beating him. The entire time, Mom was hitting Dad in the head with a 4D cell mag light. Dad didn't even realize it was happening until it was over.
And where are the kids during this absolute chaos?
The kid and Stephen watched from the window with Uncle Ryan. The kid was crying. Carl never landed a single punch the entire fight. When cops were called, Dad ran out back, jumped the fence into the woods, hid until police cleared out.
Military kids develop this weird superpower of emotional compartmentalization. They can watch their dad beat someone up and then just go back to normal life because chaos becomes baseline.
Military protocol on domestic disputes removes the soldier from the household. Dad got put in the barracks for 3 weeks. During that time, the kid, Mom, Carl, Stephen, baby Alyssa, Woody, and Marilyn all stayed in the house together. The bedridden grandfather was living through all this chaos.
Can you imagine being a sick, elderly man trying to process your family falling apart around you?
After a few months, Dad got the house back. Mom and Carl moved to Columbus together. The kids stayed with Dad on Fort Benning. That's when Dad started dating Mom's cousin Susie, and everything changed again.
Mom's cousin? The family dynamics just keep getting more complicated.
The kid says he'd always looked up to his dad until Susie appeared. She was homophobic, lazy, and demanding. This is also when the kid was getting into trouble at school. 8th grade was when things started going sideways for him too.
So the family explosion coincides with his own teenage rebellion. That timing is brutal.
He was deep into ICP, Insane Clown Posse. Had a friend named Patrick. ICP had these lyrics about taking Tylenol PMs to get high. The kid brought... He was deep into ICP, Insane Clown Posse. Had a friend named Patrick. ICP had these lyrics about taking Tylenol PMs to get high. The kid brought Tylenol PMs to school. Patrick took too many and had to go to the nurse. The kid got sent to alternative school.
Of course it's ICP. And of course he's getting kids high on Tylenol PM at school. This is peak military kid chaos.
His 13th birthday party was memorable for all the wrong reasons. He'd set up a 5.1 surround sound system, found subwoofers on the street, was DJing the party, torrenting Suicide Silence to impress a friend named Anthony, had at least 10 Monster Energy drinks.
10 Monster Energy drinks at 13? His heart must have been exploding.
After cake, everyone went inside except him and James. James had his hands behind his back like he had a gift, stepped forward and started kissing him. They began making out. His cousin Mike came in and yelled, "Brad's kissing a boy," over and over. Mom freaked out and cried.
And this is in a family that's already homophobic. How did he handle that?
He says he didn't let it get to him. Ended up talking and making out with a girl until early morning. The most striking thing is how this person actively chose to reject the racism and homophobia they were taught, showing that growing up in dysfunction doesn't doom you to repeat it.
That's actually remarkable. Despite everything, the chaos, the prejudice, the instability, he's making conscious choices about who he wants to be.
His parents had a weapon in their bedroom they called a nigger beater, piece of metal attached to a spring wrapped in duct tape. His dad told him black people had an extra bone in their legs. He believed it until he was a preteen because it came from his dad.
The fact that he had to actively unlearn all of this shows incredible self-awareness for a teenager.
Eventually, he ran away. The trigger is lost to time, probably got caught smoking again. Got sent to his room, stewed for a few minutes, then bolted out the front door full speed. Made it to the Starbucks on Fort Benning and hid under the benches outside.
Hiding under Starbucks benches? That's such a specific image of teenage desperation.
He called his mom. She agreed to pick him up. He saw his dad's Ford Explorer drive by while he was hiding. Mom and Carl eventually moved to Phoenix City, Alabama, literally across the river from Columbus. He went with them.
So now he's living with Mom and the guy his dad beat up. That must have been incredibly awkward.
They moved to 1529 Summer Place Drive around 2011. He and Stephen shared a bedroom when Stephen was living there. He would babysit all the kids and get paid in cheap cigarettes, bottom-shelf brands full of wood chips that nobody's heard of.
Getting paid in cigarettes for babysitting. That's not exactly a traditional allowance system.
There was a guy down the street named Marshall. One day the kid was walking by shirtless. Marshall said, "Let me twist your nipple with these pliers and I'll give you these one-hitters." He accepted the deal.
I'm sorry, what? He let someone twist his nipple with pliers for drug paraphernalia?
He and Stephen would sneak across the street at night to steal blunt roaches from the neighbor's porch ashtray. They'd grab a handful, take them home, roll their own from the roaches.
The resourcefulness is actually impressive, even if the circumstances are depressing.
When they moved to the next house in 2013, 531 6th Place, the landlord chased them on moving day. Carl owed him months of rent and was trying to skip out. The landlord followed them in his van through Phoenix City into Columbus and back. He never caught them.
A high-speed chase over unpaid rent. This family cannot catch a break.
At the 6th Place house, he and Stephen lived in the shed in the backyard. Big shed like a trailer, but one room. Plywood floors, metal walls. No insulation. If it was hot outside, it was really hot in there. If it was cold outside, it was really cold in there.
Living in a backyard shed as a teenager, that's like something out of a Dickens novel.
He took the right side, Stephen had the left. Both had PS2s set up. He spray painted "I Love Candace" on the ceiling above his futon and "Keep Out" on the front door. His typical dinner was outdated 7-layer cakes from Piggly Wiggly where he worked, plus a 12-pack of Faygo.
Cake and Faygo for dinner while living in a shed. But he's also working and trying to maintain a relationship. There's this weird resilience happening.
He was 17, working at the grocery store, giving out free samples, smoking whatever he could get his hands on. That's where he met Candace at school. One time they were making out on the floor and someone opened the door. Their lip rings were locked together, ripped apart when they jumped.
Even his romantic moments are chaotic. But what strikes me is how he keeps trying to connect with people despite everything.
So when you step back from all this, here's what really matters. This story shows how military life creates these unique pressures that civilian families don't face. Deployment cycles, constant moving, base housing, the whole culture of it.
Exactly. And what's remarkable is how this person navigated all of it, the family explosion, the prejudice, the instability, and still made conscious choices about who they wanted to become. They rejected the racism and homophobia, maintained relationships despite chaos, and kept working towards something better even while living in a shed.
The resilience is incredible. From watching your dad jump off a roof to beat up your mom's boyfriend, to living in a backyard shed and eating cake for dinner, to actively choosing not to repeat the cycles of dysfunction you grew up with, that takes serious strength.
And that brings us to something powerful. Growing up in chaos doesn't determine your future. You can choose to break the cycle. Remember those 15-year-old parents at the beginning? Their kid could have easily repeated those patterns, but instead chose something different. That choice, that conscious decision to be better than your circumstances, that's what real coming of age looks like.